welcome to Senator Begich for being here for this event. Actually, it was we did it for him. Anyway, welcome, Senator. It's so nice.
Thank you very much. Anytime you can do an event with beer and wine.
Hello.
Why not, right? And call it whatever you want. Thank you very much. And I think last time we did one of these, we were out at the newspaper, I think. We did a small little, and I appreciate the Chamber always doing this. Thank you for everything you're doing, and congratulations.
Thank you.
On new space and more. Is it more space?
More space.
That's better. That's a good sign.
Yep.
That only means your dues are going up. No, I'm just kidding. I don't want to get in the middle of that. But really, it is a pleasure to be here. I want to say a few words. But before I do that, I want to give just a recognition, a special letter. Abby's Kitchen is Tom. I don't know. I haven't met. Oh, there. Come over here, Tom. I have been a small business entrepreneur all my life. My wife is a small business entrepreneur. She started selling smoked salmon on a street corner in Anchorage in a little cart. She now has 5 retail stores, 30-some employees. She stresses like everyone else in small business. I still have some businesses, so I know what it's like to own and operate a small business. But the threshold of a small business is when you make it to 5 years, that's a good sign. That means the odds are with you now. That's a really, especially in the food service business.
Right, absolutely.
I have been in the restaurant business. Never again. It's a lot of work and a lot of stress. But I wanted to present you a letter in recognition to you and Abby for a business that has made it 5 years, but also just really another entrepreneur that's done an incredible job. So I just wanted to present this, just a little token of recognition for Abby's Kitchen and the work you're doing.
I appreciate it.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you, absolutely. You know, I love being able to go to small business, especially my first stop, or maybe it was my second, I can't remember, was the Alaska Brewing Company. It's always good when my staff says, okay, we got a heavy schedule, it's 15 events over 2 days, maybe more, I don't even know now. That's today, maybe 15 events. I said, oh, but our first stop is a brewery. And I'm like, that's a good idea. So when I was out there, and I've been out there before, and it always is exciting to watch what they're doing, especially around energy consumption and what they've done to just change the way they do the business out there. I can't remember the exact number, but I want to say this new energy system they've put in with, I will say, USDA money that we were able to help assist them in their effort, will cut their fuel consumption by 70%. Unbelievable. And that's just money in the bank and makes a small business more successful. And we like helping wherever we can in those areas. And we've done several forums in Anchorage, and we're going to do another one with veterans. There's a lot, and the data tells us there's a lot of veterans who are anxious to become entrepreneurs, small business people. And I just met with the franchising association that manages all the franchisors of the country. They now have special programs to engage veterans, to lower the fees, get them engaged, get them to be small business people. Because, just a side note, in the franchise business, it's not too complicated. You know, you have a set kind of guideline you have to follow, you have rules to follow, you have to manage, inspire your employees. Well, no better group of that than people who have been veterans, because their job is a mission-oriented. Here's their platform they work off of. They're there to inspire, especially if they've been leadership capacity as veterans. So we're going to do some stuff on that, and we'll obviously engage chambers around the state, because veterans will go wherever they can create an opportunity. So we hope they think about Southeast Juneau as some of those opportunities. So we're anxious to do that. Last year we brought up a group, people from Google, Facebook, Apple, I can't remember if Microsoft was there, to show people how to maximize social media. And we do these things for free. So just again, as we do more of these, we'll let you know, and we'd love to engage the chamber. I'll just say a few more quick comments, and I'll stop, and if people have questions like we did last time, if that's okay. Yep. And that is, you know, we have some big challenges in Washington around the budget issues, and there's no simple fix on this. And you're probably thinking to yourself the frustration level you have. I have as much frustration as you do, and what's going on there, in the sense that it's like every day we kind of move one step and then we move 2 steps back, and then have a problem we think we solved, another one comes up, and it's like a never ending. It's very polarized in some ways, but in a lot of other ways it's not as much. There's a lot of behind the scenes going on. The question is, will there'll be enough of us, and that's what we're kind of looking for, to be honest with you, to push the envelope forward and try to find some resolution on some of these issues. In between all my events today, I've been on the phone off and on with different senators trying to figure out some pathway, because I joked about this at the joint session. When I came into the Senate 4 years ago, just 4 years ago, I was number 100 and the youngest person. Today, I'm 65 in seniority and middle-aged. It has moved rapidly because there's a lot of people younger than me. And honestly, it's great. And I'll tell you why. You know, I have my wife and I have a 10-and-a-half-year-old son, but all these new people have similar age and younger kids. Why is that important? Because people who have kids are in public policy, they're thinking long-term. They're thinking beyond the moment of the fight. They're thinking, what do we do about tomorrow? And tomorrow is not measured by 24 hours or 7 days. It's measured by 7 years, 15 years, 30 years. The conversation I've had with a lot of these newer folks are very reform-minded, highly focused on trying to change the way the system operates to get some things done. So I'm very excited. Even though it's frustrating, I am very excited about and optimistic about what we can do. Some last data points I'll leave you with. 4 years ago, and you know this better than anyone as business people. I mean, 4 years ago, the stock market was 6,500, give or take 100 points. Today, it's bumping right around, up and down, around 14,000 when you think about it. 88% of the housing markets are all up. In some cases, double digit in this country. Matter of fact, if you want to buy a used car now, it is becoming almost impossible because the inventory is so low, because people were not buying new cars for a while. They were buying used cars. So now in the lower 48, used car dealers are trying to do bounties to get used cars in because they have no inventory, which is a good sign. Because what's also happening is we're having huge sales increases on new cars. And the list goes on and on of the good data. But it's a fragile economy in the sense that we still got to do a lot more work. We got to get this budget under control. We have to make the cuts. I'll give you one example of a department. I chair another new subcommittee. It's called Under Homeland Security Government Services. It's called Emergency Preparedness. So it deals with FEMA, disaster relief, emergency preparedness, a lot of things that Alaskans care about. But they have another office under this jurisdiction I have called the Office of Private Sector. Now, I'm going to ask anyone in here, have you ever heard of this office? Because I'm talking to the private sector, I think, right? No one's ever heard of this office. And so, of course, we asked the staff, can you find out? And they came back with just like a 2-paragraph write-up. I said, where'd this come from? Well, this is out of their book. I said, book? I said, yeah, a description of what they do. I said, I want to know what they've actually done. Not just, it's amazing. And what we will do under this crazy budget process we do,
we'll cut them?
Well, here's what we'll do. Yeah, but here's the problem. We'll just trim them a little bit, and at the same time, we'll trim Head Start. Or we'll trim the STEM programs that, I was at Auk Bay today, elementary. This is incredible stuff. Instead of saying, do we need that program? Does it have a purpose? If it doesn't have a purpose, jettison it. Yep. Protect what we know works. When I'm out, like I said, Auk Bay today, last time I came out here and I had some STEM education students working with me, they lit my hand on fire. That was actually part of to show me, see, won't burn you. Today it was electricity, and I said, not today. Not interested. Let me tell you, I am happy to hook them up. But it was amazing, these kids, these 5th graders, putting together circuit breakers and stuff. I was just like, my God, I wasn't doing that in 5th grade. But that's what we should be supporting, rather than these offices that I don't even know what the heck they do. Or we're about to fund NASA, because of this crazy thing called the Continuing Resolution, $400 million, which you think, NASA, of course. Well, here's the problem. We're going to put it into the shuttle program. Well, the shuttle program does not exist. It doesn't exist. And it's because the way we're doing these crazy budgets. I mean, it's insane. $400 million. Makes no sense. So frustration is high, but honestly, I'm still optimistic because there's some new reform-minded senators that want to get some things done. So we'll see over the next 30 to 60 days. There'll be some rough moments, but we'll see how it all lays out. Let me end there. If it's okay, I'll just take any questions folks have or comments. And I don't want to, I'm worried about you folks over here because I think the booze and stuff is in here. And I've And I'm kind of giving you this like no man's land.
They've
But
been here since 4.
oh, well, oh, then I don't want to take any questions. Then I clearly don't want to take any questions because I don't know what they'll ask. Actually, I will tell you a fisherman story real quick. So I have Dr. Lubchenko. She's the head of NOAA. She's just retired now, but I took her down to Homer, and it's all over the issues, as you can imagine, halibut, charter versus commercial. So we're going in to the restaurant, and it's at noon, and we go in there, it's just packed with fishermen. And they're just, you know, and I told her, I said, you're lucky it's not the evening, because if they had any beers in their hands, the questions will be a lot tougher. So just buckle in for a rough ride, but this ain't rough. So please, if you want to, you know. But I'm happy to answer any questions, take some comments, or anything that you have on your mind. Sure.
Senator, you know you talked about that one department or whatever you call it.
Office of the Private Sector. Come on.
Why are we reading in the paper that we're cutting all the things that we know about that work? We know about military. We know about training our military. We know about our military
education programs.
Here.
Yeah.
We know about the education.
Yeah.
What about all these things that, you know, should be?
Right. Here's what's happened. Because the way this law was passed about a year and a half ago, a year and 3/4, it was designed to be automatic across the board percent, which you know as businesses, that's just stupid. I don't care what business you have. You cannot just say across the board. What you do, you say, well, okay, maybe my human resource department I can cut a little bit, but maybe over here I can cut a little bit more. You balance it based on what you're really managing there. So the idea was, this was across the board would scare enough of us to actually
Look into the
right
Okay.
change the way. But what happened was we have some members who don't really honestly care. They don't think a lot of this stuff we should be doing, defense included. So now we're in this quagmire. Now, there's one other part that's a problem. And I can tell you this from very, very recent personal experience. I'm in a meeting. I'm making my case about, an example, Office of the Private Sector. Let's just eliminate it. Then I realize, I look around, the 5 or 6 that are around me in leadership, none of them have served in any executive position. Okay? I've served as a mayor. So it's a different way you think of things. When you're running a business, you don't say, cut across the board. You say, well, maybe I can't do this anymore. And so you eliminate that so you keep this other end of the business stronger, you know, without tweaking it down too much. And I realized I'm talking to just legislators. No disrespect to them, but they haven't run anything. And so then the next day I'm meeting with about another probably 12 or 15. 2 people speak up with me on this. And what do I notice? One's a former governor, executive. Another one's former superintendent of schools. So I suddenly realized in that moment, I kind of felt it already for the last 4 years, but that really crystallized it. Because they were agreeing with what I was trying to say, is we have to take these hard positions and say, this program we can't do. Or, for example, in the State Department, we have 5 different scholarship programs, which are all very valuable in a lot of ways, but the problem is, because they're called legacy programs, they're named for people, well, the administration is higher than the amount we give out in scholarships. So, of course, my thought is, why not compress them into one, right? One administration and more scholarships. We'd actually end up with a lot more hitting kids and out there doing, oh, you know, you can't get rid of the Eisenhower Scholarship Program. Well, all due respect, there's all kinds of stuff named for them. What, you know, come on. We don't have, as my staff would say, sympathy dollars. You know, that's, I get it. We don't have legacy dollars anymore. But those are things we have to do. And there's a new group of us that are not afraid to take those positions. Now, I will tell you, to be very frank with you, what the campaign commercial will be 3 years or 2 years from now. Begich cut education programs. That's what they'll say. I know this. But you know what? I'm fine with that because it's the right thing to do. But that's what they will do. That's what people are afraid of. They're afraid of the one-liner slogans in an ad against you. And my view is, you know what the ad's going to be really against you if you don't do this? He screwed up the country. You know, it's a pretty simple, you know, ad. So my view is you got to do these things. You got to solve these problems and take on the heat. And a lot of them just aren't. It's surprising to me. Because to me, it's like, do it. The public will understand if you explain it. They may not always agree with you, but they'll respect that you made a decision.
Dennis?
Yes, Senator. I was listening to the Senate Committee on Education this morning.
Mm-hmm.
They were talking about a program. I wonder if you have any knowledge of it. It's I kind of refer to it as distance learning at the college level.
Uh-huh.
There's an acronym for it. I wish I could pronounce it. It starts with like ADVENT or something like that. But what it is it's designed to educate, to provide quality educators to the rural areas.
Yep.
I don't just mean like
No, you get them from the universities.
teams and tutors
Yeah.
and so on.
Mhm.
What impressed me on this was that they are able to expand the educational base
Yeah.
of students in these areas. And I wonder if you heard anything about it, because
Yes.
in listening to the folks that were there talking to the legislature, not quite pleading for a small amount of money to get this thing going, and they've got living proof that this program works. It really expands education without increasing the cost, because a teacher in rural areas, makes over $100,000
Right.
a year, and they still can't get them to stay more than a couple of years. So have you
That's
heard
right.
anything on that at all?
Yeah, distance learning programs. I know what you're talking about. I can't think of the name of the program, but in essence, what it does, you can't get. Not only do they don't stay as long as you need them. If they say a year or two, that you're really lucky. But you also can get the diversity of the education. So the way distance learning is being utilized now, the challenge we have in rural Alaska is high-speed broadband connectivity. Without that, we can have the greatest programs, but we can't deliver it. So one of the things we've been doing through some funding sources through the federal government is hooking up a lot of the villages. We just did it from Cordova up to, I think, Dillingham and all the villages in between. So I think it's 100 or so villages we've been able to connect up high-speed broadband, trying to move that up the west coast or the west of part of Alaska on up. Because once we put that infrastructure in, then here's what will happen. It doesn't matter if you're a kid sitting right here or in a village in like Queetluk, for example. You'll be able to tie in to incredible teachers and educators, not only from our state, but around the world. So they can get the seminars, the education, tapping in. And I saw this in great experience I saw in Kodiak. The teacher was in one location with one student. Then they had two other students in their home communities tied in, all on the same board. All three students couldn't see each other unless the teacher wanted that to happen. But putting that aside, he then was teaching simultaneously 3 different classes and tying in experts. And then at times he'd put a test on one, then be over here. This teacher was from another state, had come up to Alaska, said, I'm not sure. He's been teaching, I thought he said maybe 15 or 18 years. He is, the enthusiasm that he has now, he says, I have been reborn in education. And that's the power of it, because what you not only get these kids getting this incredible education, but you get these teachers that are now inspired because they see these kids learning in a way they would just, it's like a dream, and it's reality. And it's low cost once the infrastructure is in. This is our challenge. But as you probably saw, one of my pitches to the legislature today was about education. I saw a class at Auk Bay. They have outside their classroom, class of 2024. That's what they have, 2024. That's their class, right? You think, wow, that's some futuristic thinking. Well, think about it. When the Arctic area gets ready for oil and gas development, not exploration, when it's ready to start spinning oil out, the kids in that class that I walked past are going to be the kids that are going to be employed in that business. So it is actually now we have to plan for that future. So distance learning is a powerful tool. I would hope, I wish, I would have loved to see that. I hope the legislature thinks about some money, but the infrastructure is critical. Because we can have a great program, but if it's slow delivery, students today, not going to work. I mean, my kid, he brags now because he saved all his money, and he has a mini iPad. And I have the old iPad, and he laughs at me. I'm thinking, my God, I'm just happy I got an iPad, And he saved all his money to get this mini, and it is, has Siri on there that talks to him, and I was like, what the heck? But kids are wanting fast response. But it's an incredible delivery system. And on top of that, healthcare is delivered through this. Powerful delivery system, especially mental health care, is another delivery system through telemedicine. We were able to make sure that the veterans system no longer charges co-pays to our veterans for telemedicine for mental health services. Because I put a bill on the table, they liked the idea, they did it, we passed the bill, because they were telling us it saved them money. And someone who already has, let's say I was a veteran, you're my mental health provider, I'm in, San Antonio where I got stationed, but now I'm coming back to Alaska. Well, I don't want to lose my mental health provider because I've created a relationship. That's a really key part of it. Well, what we found was telemedicine was keeping that linkage up, powerful linkage. And so the copay, as small as it was discouraging them from signing in. So now no copay, that veteran gets that care, much more better delivery, cheaper cost, more we can cover. So yeah, it's a powerful tool, and we should take advantage of it.
Senator, thanks for co-sponsoring some hydropower and energy legislation to try to open up some resources, especially in this state. I mean, we're much the size of the country. Supposedly we got 40% of the hydropower, 90% of the
tidal
power. You know, the wind is unmeasurable due to our coastline, and
right.
geothermal is just phenomenal. And yet, we have a lot of have and have-nots in this state as far as local energy. I'd also like to thank you on the roadless
absolutely
legislation that we have right-of-ways and transmission lines that are dreamed of, and roads that right now we'll never know if they ever happen with the roadless rule. I heard you mention one thing earlier, and I just wanted to maybe understand a little more. You know, our country needs to compress its costs, but people still want the services. And like what you said, if you have 3 different scholarships, why aren't they being administered in one? You know, in permitting, our country is one of the slowest to get a development. I mean, there's third world countries that are much faster than the United States. It sometimes takes 10 years to get a mine online and whatnot. And, you know, it's stalled by study and then sue. And we don't get the economic development. We all want these jobs. So where can you take your concept of trying to get faster permitting or having team concept permitting? If you're in the private industry, you pull your marketing person in, you pull your financial person in, you pull in your key people. Well, our federal government, why can't we do the same thing at our federal level to speed up our permitting? And you know, our area in Southeast Alaska, we're kind of handcuffed,
right?
Unless that gets fixed or we open up the land.
I'll give you one real example we've done and one we're exploring now. In addition, first one is the oil and gas industry on the Arctic. You know, I call it the whack-a-mole of regulation. You know, you knock one down, another one kind of pops up, and you knock that down, another one. It was just a mess. And so we proposed a piece of legislation that would consolidate all that, not necessarily taking away the rights of an agency, but be a one-stop shop. Very similar to kind of what you're referring to. This is my experience when I was mayor, what we tried to do. So you have a one-stop shop. And we also then, in another section of the bill, that would require that didn't matter if you were for or against a project, if you were going to sue, you would bypass the Ninth Circuit and go directly to D.C. Circuit. And the reason you do that, because that's where it's going anyway. So our view was, let's quit playing the games here. Let's get on with the show, and then limit it to 60 days. In other words, none of this prolonged process, because the reality is, both sides know exactly. I'll use Pebble as an example. Everyone knows what each side, they don't need to add more court time to make decisions. We know that. So the administration liked half of my idea. They liked the one-stop shop. They didn't like the court stuff. And I said, okay. So they did the one-stop shop by executive order, which I was happy with. They called and said, do you want to wait for legislation to pass? Or I said, no, do it, because I need this to happen now. If you ask Shell Oil Company now, after that occurred, one person's in charge of all the agencies, and it's the Undersecretary of Interior, David Hayes. It speeded up their process like that. Unbelievable. If you ask Shell, they'll tell you this. They've had great response with this more coordinated effort. ConocoPhillips is coming behind them for oil and gas next, and Statoil. Same good, positive feedback. Now, today I announced a port infrastructure bill that I put down on the table. One of the pieces in there is not only to put some loan guarantees for port redevelopment, which will touch us here in Southeast and everywhere, but also to define the EIS process, the Environmental Impact Statement, meaning that you have only so many days, federal government, when all of it's submitted, you have only so many days to respond. You don't get to drag it on until hell freezes over. You got to actually, here it is, decision time. If no decision will be made by default. We think this is the right approach to streamline major projects, because otherwise you get sued forever on frivolous activity, and that's what happens. So we have a lot of people who like this concept, because not only do our ports are important, and again, I made an Alaska-centric bill, Well, I know what's going to happen. I was hoping for this. Other senators already called me on the coast states and said, well, how can we expand this? I'm saying, oh, well, I don't know. How can we expand it? My goal there was actually to get partners, but let them come and deliver their ideas. So that's one step. On the idea of mining, if I can use mining as an example, what we did with oil and gas, we're now looking to see if we can do the same concept with mining for our state. Because if we can streamline that process, that will make a big difference. I just used a couple of mines in Southeast. We also did something in the transportation bill. Any road project under, I think it's $10 million, which is small, but usually it's like intersection repairs, things like that. No more NEPA, no more EIS process. Forget that. It's going to be a simplified, get the project done. That we fought tooth and nail, and I will be frank with you, in my caucus, Democrat caucus, they did not like my position on this. But as a former mayor, I explained to them, here's the complication of the federal process and the waste that goes in. Lake Otis and Tudor and Anchorage, for any of you that have gone through Anchorage, I remember when I was starting that project as mayor, they said, well, we have to have a whole EIS process and a NEPA process. And I said, where's the intersection going? There's no alternative. This is it. There's a big church with a 50-foot brick wall. We're not moving that mountain. This is it. And they, well, blah, blah, blah. And that's what really got me going. So now we can do these projects without all that process. That's our first flavor kind of test. The environmental community didn't like it. A lot of my national Democrats screamed at me because I was one of the Democrats that was saying, I like this. The House Republicans had proposed it, and I said, yes, let's go. Now it's in the transportation bill. It's in MAP 21. So I think there's pieces we're doing. I wish we could do more holistic, but we just can't get there. We got to kind of ease people into it. Other questions? Sorry, I go on a little bit, but I want to give you some texture to it so you get a little bit of what's happening behind it. Sally's telling me I got limited time. Like,
Maybe some little conversations. We've got about 10 minutes before I get the hook.
okay. Should I let you get... Okay.
While you're on the permit thing, and I'll whine a little bit.
Oh, you'll whine a little bit. He needs wine, he said. He needs wine.
Chardonnay, please.
Chardonnay with a shot of tequila.
This permitting problem, on a big project on the slope, yeah, it's a problem there, but in my case, it took me 5 years to permit a simple right-of-way across 700
Wetlands?
feet of Tongass National Forest
Oh.
land to private land we own,
Right.
so we can get in there and prospect it for the mine.
Right.
It's 5 years,
Yeah.
and it was a logged-over area.
Right.
I mean, it's the big projects are there, but
Right.
a bunch of little projects can add up to a big one.
Well, I can tell you one other part of that, if I can, is wetlands issues for small. Unbelievable. What, as I know as mayor, what I was dealing with. I can't give you a solid answer yet on this, but I'll tell you one of the things we're doing. One of the committees I sit on, which is Homeland Security and Government Services, for the last 4 years, Senator Lieberman has been the chair of that, so he's always been focused on Homeland Security. The real power of that committee is Government Services, and here's why. And the new chairman coming in, this is what he cares about. It's about government efficiency, regulation, and all this good stuff, which I'm looking forward to this. Because in that committee, we have jurisdiction on regulations, all departments, not just one. We get to review and make decisions about some of these issues. Second thing we get to do is government reorganization all comes through our committee, which is powerful. Because what you'll also find in those permitting processes, you have multiple agencies you got to touch, or they touch you. Sometimes you don't want to touch them, but they touch you. And, we see some opportunities. So one of the things we've talked about is let's pick, and we're not sure what it will be yet, and I've talked to Heidi Heidkamp from North Dakota, who's on the committee also with me, just had her in Anchorage, about what are those 10 items that are regulations types of issues that we can streamline or eliminate. And we're going to look at this because that committee gives us the power to do it, which is not the usual case of other committees. So this has cross-jurisdiction. So I know exactly what you're referring to. We're going to try to figure out those 10 or so, because I wish we could say we could do fell swoop, but you got to get people kind of comfortable. And I think when you're in a budget crunch, you can make people more comfortable. I'd be very frank with you. So I can probably do one last question, then we can socialize, and you can have food and whatever else in there. Socialize now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you can get something to eat.
Okay. That's it.
Then people can ask you questions in there.
There we go. Thank you all very much.
you.